Dude, here we go. We finally doing it. How long have you been trying to do a podcast, bro? We've been trying to do a podcast for over a year, I think.
I think it's been 2 years.
Yeah, actually 2 years. Well, we finally got it, but we are now sitting down on the voice of production, and we have one of the biggest voices of production that's finally making a scene on the scene when it comes to just social media, when it comes to the automotive industry, when it comes to just being a creator. We got Charles, last name, please say it. I don't want to mess it up. Siritho.
Siritho. It's like Sri and then toe.
Okay, Charles Siritho. And again, I've known this guy for a long time, so don't judge me. But I always seen his last name, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna say it right, because people say my last name Severs, and it's Severs.
Severs.
Yeah, you see it, it's like Severs, but it's Severs. But I'm finally glad to finally sit down with you again. Like I said, you're somebody that I feel like is really authentic as far as how you work and how you operate, how you deal with people, and navigating this crazy life. No matter how high or how low, no one's perfect, but the motto that I think you follow is progression is the only obsession. That's something I like to say, but I think you follow around that way. You're just always trying to progress in some degree, which I think that should be everyone's motto. It doesn't have to be the biggest leaps, but even if it's smaller ones, that's all we can do in this life to feel adequate in what we're trying to do in life, whether it be the best bellman we could be, or be the best videographer or the best person we could be. But I definitely think you're in that circle. So welcome to the show. But I wanted to talk to you, and I wanted to ask you, because you haven't been you've been in front of the camera a few times, but you were sharing before we started the podcast talking about your journey with production and how that started for you. I wanted you to bring us back to when you first had a camera in your hand. When did that start for you? Was it the first iPhone? Was it an old video recorder? And what first project that kind of gave you a high where you're like, this is kind of something I like to storytell. I like to be able to tell a story, control the narrative. When did that happen? What age range? And then that's kind of talk about the momentum that's swung from there all the way to now.
So everyone, including yourself, everyone's got to excuse me. This is I think my third or fourth one I've ever did. Yeah. So let's see what we got here. But, digital media, as I like to encompass it, as far as photography, videos, or anything that, kind of design-wise, I started back when I was 16. So when I was in Payette High School, I was in Miss Swickard's class. I was in the newspaper class. And we had I took the newspaper and made it like a real newspaper, because I was looking at what she had built, what her previous classes built, and I said, you know what? I can do this a little better. In reality, I didn't know what I was doing, but it looked pretty damn good at the time. I mean, this was 2007.
Yesterday.
That's what it feels like, to be honest. But I didn't know what I was doing with the design. But when I had finished the first initial run, I said, this doesn't look bad. Like, what can we do to improve it? We kept making it a little more modern, more look like a real newspaper. And I said, well, we don't have any photos. Okay, well, we don't have any photos. I remember my dad had a Nikon, don't quote me on this one, I want to say it's an N60 camera. Okay. So it was a film camera, and I remember it was always just sitting there, and I'd called him up. It's like, hey, you still got that old film camera we had from way back in the day? He's like, yeah. He's like, you want it? This thing's probably worth like $50. I said, yeah, sure. And I didn't know there was digital cameras. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, send it over. So, I think I got the school to give me like a $40 budget for film and developing it, and an obsession grew from there. I think we took I still have all of the film to this day. Yeah, I have every single roll.
Nostalgia.
Because if you go to Walmart or Walgreens, when you develop it, they give you back the film. I have every single one of them still. I think we probably have thousands of photos, and they're all terrible. We had it was a kit lens. It was 28. It was like a 2880 kit lens, and I didn't know what aperture was or ISO or any of that thing was.
I still don't. So
I wish I would have known, because the camera's not bad at all. And they just they were cool, generic candid photos, really candid moment stuff of my entire junior to senior year. We documented, all of our sports teams. We documented all of the stuff that was happening in the city. I started documenting just random things that were going around in the school. And it was a great excuse to get out of class. It was my number one excuse. I figured out how I could leverage, and I didn't even know that I was leveraging, but I had figured out that if I could just use a newspaper class, say, oh, I got to go shoot an article.
Yeah.
The teachers kind of roll their eyes. They're like, did you get your work done? I'm like, I'll get it done. No, I didn't get it done. And then I'd go shoot. Well, into like my late junior year, it was the film was getting ridiculous, right? We were stacked up to here, and I was like, okay, we need a modern solution to this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember. Do you remember those cameras, those Sony cameras that took floppy disk?
Yes.
Our econ class had one, and I started using that low key on the side, and the teacher didn't know, and I was like, okay, I really got to get my own now. I was like, dang, digital's like mind bending. Like, what the heck? I mean, digital cameras have been out for a hot minute still then. So I did a little research, and at the time, the cheapest camera was a Nikon D40.
Nikon D40.
Yeah, this little DSLR thing, and I was like, oh my God, $389. Like, this is every dollar I have, right? So I ended up getting one. It took, to the end, nearly the end of junior years to finally get it. And that's, now it went from an obsession to like this, we're bringing this thing everywhere we go. Every car meet. Now, I mean, I'm a car guy, obviously.
Yes.
And now we're bringing it to the car meets. We're taking pictures of our cars.
So that came before the cameras. You already had a love for cars.
Oh yeah, the car thing was way before the cameras.
It was just a match made in heaven when you discovered the capability of the camera to capture it.
Well, I was always on forums, like auto forums and stuff, watching other guys take photos of their cars, and they're actually pretty darn good photos. And I was like, maybe I could do that, right? I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah. But I got a D40, and then randomly, my friend Brad, he had sent me a Craigslist listing saying, I want to trade a D40 for a D80. We thought it was a straight up scam. D80 was at the time probably a $700-800 camera, and it was a huge leaps and bounds in ISO.
Why did you want to trade it?
She said it was too hard. Well, we met up, and she was real. She's just a normal lady. And she's like, this thing is way too hard for me to use. I just want a simple camera. And I'm like, okay. And then I got a D80, and I was like, cool. I got a D80 for nearly free, and a free lens out of it. That lasted 2 seconds, because then I found another guy to trade up into a D200. And that was the camera that kind of stuck around from, I think the D200 stuck around from senior year into about 2 years. But, oh my gosh, I probably ran 1 million actuations through the shutter. So that's when I ended up buying this is the most noob thing. I ended up buying an 18-200 lens. I thought, me and my dad thought it was good because it could go wide and you could go zoomed in. Well, we didn't know there were specialty lenses. There's primes and all that. Yeah. But I took a gamble because a guy I was watching on some car forums, he had bought a 70-200. It's a really compressed lens for portraits and stuff. And I had bought one of those, and I was like, oh, I'm in over my head now. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to use it. I bought these, my dad bought me these filters because he wanted to protect the front. Well, little did I know is that one of them was a CPL, and I couldn't figure out why everything was so dark all the time. Well, you're supposed to take the CPL off in some instances. The CPL is a circular polarizer, so it cuts reflections through glass. And I didn't know about that, so I thought that lens sucked. It's actually the 18-200 was a decent lens.
It served its purpose.
It did, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then I shot the 70-200 all the time because it was just creamy quality. But I didn't know I was supposed to put the CPL on that, so the cars looked like crap because metallic objects obviously have reflections, and I needed a CPL, and no one told me, and I didn't learn.
No editing can salvage it.
No. I mean, maybe if you spent hours and hours, but I didn't know about editing back then. I actually started in Photoshop when I was like 14.
Really?
Again, I didn't know what I was doing. And that's how I got into the newspaper stuff. But I'll never forget, though, my highlight in the whole photography thing. I had gotten contacted by a local newspaper to shoot our softball game. And they said, hey, we need a photographer at the softball game. It's a paid gig. And I was like, okay. And I had the D40, I had the kit lens, the 1855, and I'm out there shooting 9 billion shots. I'm like, I gotta nail this. Like, I have got to nail this. This is my first gig. It's only been like 2 months I've had this camera. Someone called me to do a gig. This is wild. I'll never forget one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. Someone had hit a foul ball and it had landed in front of me. I almost caught it. It was a magical moment. Bro, I went to go throw it back to the dugout. I threw it over the dugout.
Wow.
My face, when that ball hit the top of the metal
embarrassment.
roof, someone yelled out, "Stick to shooting photos." I was like, I'm gonna go and I was just gonna leave.
I'm gonna go ponder life.
Yep. But I'll never forget that moment. And I went through that night. They needed the photo, and as soon as the game was over, I went and did my image culling, and I pulled out one or two photos, and they ran with only one photo. And it was this zoomed in photo of my friend, like she's just winding up a pitch. And a week later, I got an $80 check. Bro, I felt I had that, that Dave Chappelle skit where he's like, "Come in, you broke motherfuckers." Yeah. That's how exactly I felt when I got $80 to my name.
Straight flexing.
I mean, remind you, I lived in Payette, Idaho. It's like population 7,000 people. And
oh yeah, you were the richest man in town.
Oh yeah, I had $80, bro, net positive. And I'm like, holy shit. I just made $80, like
back in the day too, when inflation wasn't crazy.
Right.
So you're really rich.
I bought a lot of, what were the BK stackers at the time? But I was like, okay, I got to build up on this. Like, I've got to figure out, like, how can I make some coin doing this? Well, that's when I kind of started marketing, and I didn't even know I was doing it, right? So I was hanging posters up all over the school doing senior photos. Dude, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. They were terrible. I won't lie. They were god awful. I didn't know what composition was, what settings were, or whatever.
But people came back. They were asking.
Yeah, dude, I was charging $60, $80, for like 20 to 30 senior photos. Again, they got better as time went on. Of
course. But
like the first three were fucking bad.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
It's like somebody has that in the yearbook right now.
Yeah, you're just like, and I look back at it and I'm like, damn, that was terrible.
Like, I'm sorry that you're my first, but I'm also thankful.
So I didn't even know like that was marketing. And remind you, these posters were god awful. And I was wondering why not so many people were reading them. They're just like Comic Sans posters, just stapled to every bulletin I could find around the school.
Let's go.
But I had, after I got the D200 and 7200, I shot more cars and shooting more and more cars and people and all that. And I was joining more forums. And that's how I ended up meeting a lot of people out here before I even came here. So I ended up moving out here when I was 18 and networking with some local automotive photographers.
Yeah.
And from there, it kind of just blossomed. I did that for 14 years. So
in the trenches.
Got here, when I was 18. It was October 2009. I moved here to exactly Avondale. I moved to Avondale, and I met a guy named Mike Mays, and we ended up shooting a bunch of weddings together. And again, I just kept progressing with the cars and just networked myself and just took more and more photos and just progressively learned more about the trade and the technical side of things. And I actually hosted a ton of workshops. We've taught over probably 2,000 people in the Valley. And a lot of them have moved on to create a lot of successful businesses in photography. But
based off your foundation.
Yeah, and I didn't even, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like 21 or 22. And
why'd you start hosting what was the pinnacle time? What was the biggest time frame when you decided to host it? Like, what happened? Do you remember when it was like, all right, a lot of people asked me about it, and now I'm gonna start hosting workshops to teach people?
It was Mike's idea.
Okay.
But he wanted me to co-host it because a lot of people started showing up. Like, we started probably 30 people. Next thing you know, there's 50, 60, 70, 80 people showing up to these things. So we had to get bigger and bigger venues.
Yeah.
and obviously he couldn't control that many people, so he had me, and then we'd hire models to help with, I'm helping people with composition and lighting and all that. And I have this term, me and Mike have this term, it's called Bob, because it came from a saying, it's like, what is that, Bob's tripod? Like it's some cheap thing. And
low grade, you're like, what?
I always, I look back at it again, I felt like I was literally Bob the photographer back then.
Yeah.
Like I barely knew what I was doing, and I didn't really ramp my knowledge until I think the composition part, like composition, lighting, and all that, it kind of like forced my way into my head when I was, I'm trying to think back at it, probably like 22 or 23. That's when things went straight up. Yeah. Because they were like this, they're really rocky, and then, I don't know, something clicked in my head. After shooting like 150 weddings, I kind of translated that, learning light and all that, and then finally the composition with the cars clicked, and I've gotten to, drive and take some incredible photos of cars. But again, 14 years here, man, I hung that shit up, and all's been, whenever we get into that story, all's been, it's all history at that point.
Damn, so yeah, you got so much pack. I feel like there's so many segments you could like really dive into. And it's funny, it's so interesting how you came across. You had just a curiosity. It seems like you've always been curious in your life, and then that curiosity just led to strong skills. Whether you loved it or you found out you were good at it, and you kind of like merged the two. Wouldn't you say?
Well, I think a better way to put it was, I think as I got older, I was recognizing how arrogant I was. I was probably the most arrogant, kind of rude person when I was young. Like, I thought I was the shit. Like, I was like, damn, I got a D200, I got a 7200, a D700, whatever. Like, I thought I was the shit. Like, I came from a small town, really small town, but I lived in big cities before, but I was trapped in that small town for 4.5 years, and shit went down, bro. Like, shit went down while I lived there. And coming to this massive, it's Phoenix's 6th largest city. It's been the 6th largest city.
And growing.
I was already making waves with the photos that I were taking here, but I still had maintained that kind of shit attitude. And then, working with Mike and his friends really humbled me to like, oh, I don't know what the fuck I'm actually doing, right?
Which is good. You found out that you weren't pinnacle. Yeah,
and I think a lot of people don't have that ability to kind of like look in the mirror and go, fuck me, I don't know everything, right? Maybe I should like listen more, right? Yeah. As you get older, like that should hit you. But as I got older and hung out with Mike and Blair and other key people in my life in photography, is like, oh, I listened. Now I'm doing less and listening more, because that's what I was like. Man, I want to be this level, right? At that time, I wanted to be like this on the photography scale, right? And then we could rant on about why I never made it there. But the ramp up from like, being 22 into, 25, the skill level in the photography went straight up. Yeah. And all it did was me just kind of listening, sitting back, kind of changing my approach to things, and, and also doing a lot of research too. Yeah. And applying myself and shooting 24/7. But it was kind of, shutting my yapper and taking advice from people.
It seemed like you got into a big season of just output, like 150 weddings. A lot of people can't say it. Maybe some people are like, I just did 10 weddings this year. You're like,
oh, that's it? No, we're doing them every week, bro.
Yeah, because that translates now, because now you're, it's regular for you to pull out a 10-hour day, 15-hour day, and like what you do. You're always posting, you're like, yeah, 12-hour day was getting it done. And you go around, a lot of people, that work ethic isn't around, in the United States at least.
I want to touch on that. If you want to talk about this. Yeah. I do not take pride in how much I work anymore. I think, when I was younger, I was prideful, like, oh yeah, but 16-hour, 18-hour days, bro. Yeah. Well, now I look back at it, and in this current business that I am, I'm not fucking proud of it. Like, nobody should be working this much. And the only reason I worked this much is because I made fucking mistakes, right? Now I'm paying for those mistakes. Yeah. It's so funny how easy it is to make a mistake in business or just anything in life. And the adverse effects of it could be months, could be years, right? And you don't know that until you fucking make the mistake.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know it's real, I'm really layering some caramel over this and not evaluating it.
We'll hit it as time passes.
But, oh, damn, I totally forgot what I was about to say right there.
No one should be proud of working a lot, and you come to the conclusion that only reason you're working that much because you made a bunch of mistakes, and you don't glorify it.
Thank you.
Yes.
He's listening, guys.
He's like, this is crazy. No one listens to it.
Oh my God, it left me again.
It's okay. I'll add on to
Don't glorify the mistake. Fuck me. This is so important. The mistakes that the solutions that you find to your mistakes as an entrepreneur define who you are in your own entrepreneur space and industry. Because you can make a mistake, this is very general, and you can get upset about it. You can dwell on it, you can get pissed about it, you can cry about it. Guess what? The fucking world turns, and the world doesn't give a fuck about your mistake or your wins, right? You're your own fucking being, especially when you're your own business owner. Like, you're your own cheerleader half the time, right? Yeah. And, you know, kudos to other people that do have a following and they've got a fucking 100K following that's, you know, cheerleading them to the top. Who you don't know what mental battles they're facing, right? Yep. But for the real people like myself and other people, we don't got the pom-poms 24/7, right? Yep. And, you know, I would say for 2 years, I made mistakes and kept making the mistakes. And I didn't recognize it until I slowed down. And it took me forever to you had to slow down. You got to slow down to run. You got to walk to run, right? Yeah. But as everyone knows, you know, my business operates 1,000,000 miles an hour back in the day, and you know, I just couldn't make correct decisions, and I wasn't probably being influenced by the correct people to make those decisions either. I was really closed-minded in business. Yeah. And again, this has only been 4 years since that. We got to get into a proper talk about that. Yeah, we'll dissect that. But no, I think the biggest takeaway about you know, that mini split conversation is you've got to be able to realize your mistakes as soon as fucking possible and fix them. Yeah. If someone says you're an asshole, you should probably wonder why that person says you're an asshole, right? Or if someone says, hey, you shouldn't do that, maybe you should do your due diligence on why they're saying you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be like, no, bro, you know what you're talking about, right? You should really, you know, if they're close to you or they have knowledge in an industry that you don't, you should probably question that shit and say, maybe I'm doing that wrong, or maybe there's a way to improve on what I'm doing, right? Yeah. And to me, that was like, it would hit me. Yeah. But now, everything that I do moving forward, it's usually a calculated risk. Yeah. Because there's no more, you don't get mistakes no more mistakes after this. Yeah. You don't think any mistakes will come about? Because mistakes will come, but it's important for you to learn from the mistakes. You don't want to trip over the same mistake twice. Right. I'm 100% there. But as a person that's on the forefront, like combining the mistakes element and then working as far as the work aspect, it definitely yields an advantage. I'm not to say it's not to be proud of it per se, because there are elements that most people don't. Is it still going? Most people don't even like your output, like even how hearing you type, like what you could do with an hour. Most people, well, your hour could be someone's 2 hours just to hear and see how effective you are. Do you have to work 10, 20 hours? And maybe at the time, maybe you had to. Even for you to understand, understanding that you don't have to, you had to work 10, 12, 15 hours, 16 hours a day. Do you want to do that? Hell no. Is this something that you encourage? I would debate on that, just depending on who the individual is and what stage of life they're at. But it's not something to glorify, but a lot of people talk about they want a certain output. They want an outcome, but their input isn't as big as the outcome that they want. So that's the only reason I emphasize or at least bring it up, because it's not a mistake. I wouldn't say it's a mistake to do some of the things you're doing now, be working with the people you work with, have a network you have. A lot of people will bring so much glorification to it or be at awe, but
your track record matches. So it would say in terms of how you're working on your network, how you're working on your skill set to where people want you in your demand. So that's why I bring it up. Does it have to be glorified? No, but it does need to be paid attention to. I would say if somebody's looking for an extraordinary outcome, because everyone wants extraordinary outcome, but I don't want to work that much. It's like, because you can tap into 10% right now and it would be so fast. It would be 6th gear for most people.
The only statement to that entire paragraph you just said is how fucking bad do you want it?
Yeah.
How bad do you want it?
Yeah.
How bad do you want the Bugatti? How bad do you want, that just as I was ranting today, right? How bad do you want the bad bitch? How bad do you want the fucking Hyra? How bad do you want the jet? How bad do you want the yacht?
Yeah.
Because watching this fucking video and watching me talk about it or scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, that ain't gonna get you it. But maybe the motivation, the speak. I just went on a whole fucking rant today about that. Yeah. But maybe obviously my tone of voice or other videos will get people to get up, and I want that. Obviously, I want to have an impact to someone's life. Yeah. But I don't need to be that motherfucker, right? Like at the end of the day, when I was a kid, it was like I always wanted it. No one taught me that. When I was 5 years old, I was like, I want to be a NASCAR driver. That's the only thing I could think about. I was like, I gotta be a NASCAR driver, race car driver, drive karts, do something in motorsports, right? Unfortunately, I didn't have that ability or upbringing, and my parents didn't see that in me. No lie, like my dad had a great job. My mom, that's a whole nother fucking subject. My dad had everything all the way till I was about 6 or 7. He lost everything. And from there on, bro, I got I think, this is a whole nother fucking subject.
We gotta do, that's why you got so much to cover.
There's too much. But I would say, after 6 or 7, I got, from about 12 years old to 14 years old was, again, we had blissfulness. My stepdad at the time had some coin. He was working for Intel. Things were fucking great. We had a brand new house. I got to do my hobbies, my curiosity. Yeah. I got to explore what I wanted to do. And when I was 12 to 14, dude, my knowledge went straight up. I got a computer, I got RC cars. I was paintballing, so I was more physical. I'm not fucking what this shape is now today, And a lot of my shit now is from my childhood. I still hold on to it. I still play my RC cars. I still have a fucking crazy paintball gun. I have a crazy computer. I still got all my cameras and shit.
You built it, yeah?
Yeah, but everything is just I think in my childhood at like 5 or 6, everything was ingrained because I did have RC cars when I was young, I think paintball's I remember we'd always, we'd throw water balloons at each other, or we'd shoot dart guns, the Nerf guns at each other and shit. And so paintball's just that evolved thing is you get to chase your friend and whoever shoots you first gets out, right? So it's kind of that evolved fun. And one thing in me, I'll never ever let go of my hobbies because that's what defines me as a person.
100% same.
But at the same time, you got money.
Yeah.
You got money.
Those are fun hobbies.
My hobbies, as you can tell.
A little expensive.
Right? So how bad do you want it, right?
Yeah.
When I was younger, probably high school years, everybody knows me. I was like, I'm gonna have a fucking Ferrari. I'm like, fuck all you.
So you're the guy I needed I have to have a Ferrari. 458.
At that time, 2006, 2007, I think was the 430 was just coming out. I was like, I have to have a fucking 430 like that. I had $1 in my bank account, right? I was at that time. I love telling this story. I was a flamethrower. We worked, me and my whole posse. We worked for a ditch riding company. So we go in the irrigation ditches and we'd burn them off. Yeah. And then so one person would man the water truck, one person would flamethrow, and one person would, and then a bunch of guys would be putting the fires out. Right? Yeah. They'd be smoldering them. Well, I was a flamethrower and I got fucking sick, right? Yeah. But long story short, I had we were making $7 an hour, right? I don't get a fucking Ferrari, right? But I had that ambition. I was like, I got a Ferrari, I have a big house, I have a jet, and all. But come present time now, right? Now I'm I just want normality and stability.
Yeah,
Right?
let's dive into that. Just after going through that, because everybody has the pinnacle of things. You lived it where you had a desire for it from very young age, and you've accomplished a lot of these things. And so, what's the mentality of Charles now in 2024, where in this case you want normality, and what does that look like for you? What's that look like for Charles?
Well, Dan, there's the normality, has to come with the talks of what happened with the business back in 21. But
Oh yeah.
to kind of sum that up,
We'll touch on that at some point in depth, but this is the first layer of it, and this is going to be a series that I can already tell where we just there's so much to talk about. We're finally getting Charles in front of the camera where we're really layering back. He's pondering on how things have come to fruition, because it's so different to talk about and think about it and then share it, and then let alone experience it. So there's so much we can just talk about in sections to kind of compound it up, but. Yeah, 2021 is. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah. What's normal? What after acquiring the shininess? Now you want normality. What does that look like for you now?
So I don't know if I really have the shininess, because if I had the shininess, again, alluding, creating some Tarantino effect here. I don't have a team, so that's a problem. And all my body chases now is normality and relaxation. I miss my weekends. I work 16 to 18 hours now. I work even more. I've had to fight to get the business back to where it used to be, and it is there now. But it's been a tremendous amount of work to get it back to where it used to be. And the amount of capital that I've injected personally into this venture is, eye-opening. From where I came from making $7 an hour, right? It just seems as if millions of dollars now are just another number. It's really weird, and it's actually disgusting, if you want my honest opinion. Yeah. Chasing normality, I think, is not a good thing, because it makes you less hungry, right? Yeah. Because yes, in the back of my mind, I still want the yacht, I still want the jet, right? But in this current time frame, that is not a reality. We're faced with two different paths right now. It's either we sell the business or we keep going, and it's going to be like this for a hot minute, and it's not going to be fun.
No fun factor.
No, it's not. It really isn't. Yeah. But we are now making a lot of money, and there's a whole nother episode to talk about the current economy and how the economy has roller coastered through this. But also I had factors that I didn't know about that were affecting the website. And that's all. That talk is deep. No, it's not deep, it's dark. Because coming to self-realization that the mistakes that I made were so grave, and having to accept those mistakes has changed me as a human being in less than probably 6 months.
Had to humble yourself for sure.
And as I told you when you walked in the door, this is the best time to do this, because I've now come to full circle of all the bullshit that I have created, done, amended, and trying to put Elmer's glue in every hole to this day, right? So now all I can do moving forward is not make those mistakes, because I document everything in my life. Every single thing that happens, major incident, I just take a Google Doc and I write it down so I don't fucking do it again. And if I get close to doing it again, I go read it back. I read it again.
Read the pain.
Yep, and see what happened there. And I don't mean that as I'm not like some fucking psychopath or some weirdo that.
No, you're hard on yourself, which is you're ambitious. You have a high ambition. You're hard on yourself. And as you mentioned this, all I can think about is to remind you that a lot of chaos that you have created, you've also created a lot of great outcome. To keep, and I say that to just give yourself a reminder of that. But still, it's good to have that. But maybe someone's never told you that. But it's good to know out of the chaos that you have created a lot of things that just sat down and pondered on. There is a lot of things to be proud of. And
I'm terrible at being able to accept that.
That's why
1,000%. And not only that, I'm also terrible at realizing that I think I was, I'm so accustomed to what had happened in COVID, and now it's not happening now. It kind of is, but the amount of money that we were making in COVID was disgusting, right? I got used to that lifestyle. Yeah, and I'm so humbled because I know what I came from, and I know the reality of how bad shit can truly get.
Quick.
I refuse to believe that anything that has happened in these 4 years is good. Because if they were good, we would still be in the building. We'd still have the team, right? We would still be at the forefront. But it's taken me almost a year and a half to reclaim the throne, rightfully. And I believe we are.
Yeah.
I think every single day our SEO gets better, our Google placement is better. But I went to a dark fucking place when we got evicted, and shit was fucking bad.
Yeah.
And I dug out of it, and here I am. But as I always tell people, I'm in the ocean, under the swimming above the Marana Trench with a fucking Starbucks straw, just sucking air.
Yeah.
And we need like a full year of just no mistakes. Head down.
Major mistakes.
Yeah, head down and just fucking work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, unless either we find, different avenues of income, it's hard to subsidize payroll in that.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be me for a long time. And what a lot of people don't know, and unfortunately, a lot of the customers will never watch this because they're just, our customer base is so old. A lot of people don't know it's just fucking me. It's literally just me. I'm doing the marketing, I'm doing the emails, I'm doing the customer support, I'm adding all the product, I'm talking with, I'm talking with the vendors and all that. People think we're like this fucking $1 billion company.
You are.
Like, it's crazy as shit. And no, it's just some fucking idiot behind the camera that doesn't dress up half the time, taking these calls. And
You text me, he's like, I look homeless, so do with that as you will.
I mean, I do. I used to fucking get a haircut every week, and now it's like once a month.
Yeah.
Because I can't leave. And until those stones turn more, or until the orbit realigns, it's gonna suck for a hot minute. But again, I guess my perceived reality is different than yours and other people, but I think I can do better.
Of course you could do better.
Yeah.
You have a lens now that you wouldn't have not going through all that, which is now you have that realization. And so this is why I'm glad this finally came about. And maybe this was, I say different seasons for different reasons. Now this season of us finally sitting down and chatting and just essentially just documenting the process. You can call it a podcast, you can call it whatever, but overall we're just sharing and showing what's true to us and how we feel. And therefore at the same time, we're sharpening each other's sword of sharing a new perspective for myself, even for you. And essentially that's going to help ourselves first and then anybody that watches us second. But I think that's what's going to happen with us as we continue to just dump maybe 45 minutes and an hour to this, and then it's just going to compound, where it's going to be a value to both of us, where again, you're like, damn, Sean, okay, I kind of see, I've never heard anybody give affirmation of progress. Because everything, like I know one of your coin words now that I've heard you sit is disgusting. I'm like, all right, that was disgustingly great. I think a lot of good's gonna come out of it. But you built a lot of momentum. Like example, we were just talking about, with you working with, like when you first met Chase. Like that was a beautiful thing of you being able to work with him and understanding. Like we know, like Chase is a great guy and who he is, and he's a sponge, and then he's a sniper when he speaks. And
that's a good saying. I like that.
Thanks. And we value that, and we understood it. And we've been able to be in his life, and he's able to be in our life. And that I just made a random post. I told myself I'm gonna start giving affirmations to people in my life, and he was like the first person, because he was like, hey, I want to do a shoot. He's like responsible for 3, 4, 5 photo shoots where he's like, hey, I want to do a photo shoot. Like, let's shoot around for free. I'm like, I could pay. He's like, I just want to shoot. And him being in our lives and being able to provide opportunity, vice versa, it was an opportunity. Like that's a beacon by itself of maybe the hardship or what you're able to provide, not only for yourself, but those around you. Like that's like little stuff like that. There's a lot of small compounds like that in your life, even for my life, where we might not even give it the time of day, but it's had bigger impact than we realize.
Yeah, Chase is an easy hour conversation.
Oh, dude, by himself.
In the most positive light ever.
Yeah.
Like whoever, if Chase ends up, starting his own business with his rental stuff, or he does go get a job, that employer has no fucking idea how lucky they are to have that human being in their household.
They better act promptly, because those are the aces that people screw over and they don't really understand. Like the employer needs to see, because like we see, you saw, and those are the people that you want to build around. You want to have as a fundamental piece to have people attracted to even be a part of it. Like if I saw Chase working, like when I saw him working with you, I was like, man, like how can I work with Charles, bro? Like that's because it's a reflection of what the environment's like. Because if Chase is about it, what is everyone else has to be decent, to some degree. It has to be somewhere in that median. Not all the way 100%, but in general, it sets the tone of someone like that in your circle. It says great things. And so those that do, you better recognize. But yeah, Chase is, dude, he's Chase. I don't know what else to say. We'll definitely hit on that, but that's a whole nother chapter right there in itself.
It just in businesses, because if you have that one employee that's, ride or die, or they understand the long-term gain. Chase was the long-term. He could see the vision of what I was trying to, I don't like to say it, but I probably have traits as a visionary, and I'd hate that because visionaries usually spend a lot of money. Again, it's a huge rant about, the vision of FFP and all that. He saw it, with the McLaren Ventures, the workshop, restarting the shop, investing a lot of money in the shop, and, again, keeping it small. Chase was the man when it came to finding those clients. We needed to subsidize all of these crazy expeditions that I was quite literally taking. And I couldn't have done that without Chase or Alex or a lot of people on the team, but he was a very key person to all that. But again, we can definitely talk about that later.
Maybe you have him on one day.
I know, right?
I'd be like, Chase, say something.
I don't think maybe. He's got some stories.
Oh.
And of course his accident is huge.
Oh, yeah, that was life-changing in so many different realms and ways. Another chapter that started and stopped into something completely different for those around him and even for him personally. So I would be so interested. That's why I told him when I first started. I was like, dude, we have to all jump on the pod. He said, yeah. I was like, I don't know if he's down. I'm like, bro, we'll do something. Yeah.
It's funny. So talking about my vendors and stuff, we've always, watching like DDE and, some other like, shops do podcasts, RDBLA and all that. It's funny how they like, a lot of it's customer experiences or car builds or all that. I don't think there's enough, outreach of like people like me. I'm not to that level yet. I want to be, but I don't think a lot of people understand how fucking hard this shit is.
No, it's not easy.
Everyone just sees the I don't know. Fuck that. I don't ever sugarcoat anything, right? I show the bullshit in between. Where I'm proud of showing the bullshit in between.
I'm more proud of that.
Dude, obviously the glory is actually, racing the cars and having fun and laughing and going on vacations and doing rad shit. But in between all of that, dude, it's just eating dog shit. Like fundamentally for like 18 fucking hours all day.
Trying to solve a problem that you don't know if it's going to be able to be solved in a certain timeline.
But they're going like this. That's what I love. That the only thing that keeps me going is that I made this many problems and they were healing this fast.
Yeah.
This fast. And now they're coming like this. Now it's going like this. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll stick it in, I'll put my head down, let's just get it done. But yeah, there's so many rants, but no, my original statement was there's also segments we could talk about like customer stories. Dude, I got this crazy story about this guy that came in, these fucking Balkan guys came into the shop and like threatened us and all this shit. We've had the cops show up. There's just so many stupid wild stories that happened in less than 2.5 years.
No, we're definitely going to jump into it, but yes, if you're watching this on the long format of this, definitely give feedback on your favorite part because we have so much to talk about, both myself and Charles. But again, Sean Severs, Charles Siritho. Charles Siritho. I'm going to get it down. I have to, especially when we jump on camera because we got a lot to talk about.
Siri and a toe.
Yeah, Siritho.
That's it.
We're gonna dive back on our mixed experiences when it comes to the automotive industry and even just marketing, just life in general. And you give us feedback on what your intake on it. Does it have to be pinnacle information? No, but it's our stories, it's our perspective, and you do with what you want, what you will, and we're just choosing to share it. So until next time on the Voices of Production.